Welcome to On the Mark. I'm your host, Mark Rubin. I am so excited to present this podcast series addressing our rapidly changing world and how it is affecting industries and people in unique and interesting ways. As John F. Kennedy once said, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. The business leaders and personalities who I will be interviewing in these podcasts certainly look to the future. And I hope you come away with information and inspiration that helps you adapt in both your business and personal lives. You can find these podcasts on all major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, getsplatzer.com. Welcome to this edition of On the Mark. Today we're going to be speaking to Jehan Shehab, who goes by the name of Gigi, and Gigi is a senior vice president, and I think she's a director of commercial banking for a new bank in the New York area. It's called 42 North Private Bank. It's a bank out of the Boston region that is coming into New York, and the challenge I think Gigi faces is as a member of the team is bringing that bank into the New York region, making it known, getting customers. Of course, they're looking to expand in the metro New York area. Welcome, Gigi. Welcome to On the Mark.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, why don't we start off with your background a little bit? I understand you've been in banking for 25 years.
Yes.
Tell us a little about what your background is in banking.
So I was in college finishing up, and my dad was like, you need to get a job. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And he saw an ad in the Sunday paper about a new bank coming into New Jersey. I'm sure most bankers have heard of it, Amalgamated Bank, and they were hiring tellers. So I said, this is great. I can work full-time by day and go to school full-time at night. And I was probably one of the only college students amongst my peers that had full benefits, medical, dental, vision, a full-time job during the day at a bank, and with banking hours as they used to be. I was getting out at 4 o'clock and going to my classes from 7 to 10 p.m. It was great. I lived on campus. The bank was down the street. And once I was done with school, I just said to myself, you know what? I like this. I like meeting people. I like talking to people. I like the growth. I like the banking world. I was a business major. So I said, let me just stick to it. And I just applied. I started applying to other banks to just grow in my career. And that's really where my banking career started.
And you've been in some very well-known substantial banks. I know you've been involved with Morgan Stanley,
Yes.
with Sterling Bank, with Signature Bank.
Yes.
So it seems that you're no stranger to the banking industry, that you've grown, and it seems that your growth is in the area of being the client contact, bringing in business, managing client accounts, client relationships, not the accounts themselves, but the relationships. What does it take to manage a relationship? What's the important parts of your job in managing a banking relationship or bringing in a business?
Just one word: service. I'll follow it up with availability. So we have to be available to our clients. They're not running their businesses on a regular 9 to 5 schedule. Business owners are growing their business and running their businesses all at the same time. So they are the CEO, the CFO, they are the business development officer, they're the rainmaker for their business, they're the admin for their business, they're the operations for their business. So it's very important that they have a banker they can rely on and a banker they can trust, like a trusted advisor. And that is what I've built my reputation and career on, in being there for my clients, because a bank is a bank is a bank, right? It's the same thing. You make deposits, you make loans, and they service your accounts with all the same products that every bank has. So what sets me apart, what sets us apart, is the service and the availability to our clients.
So when you've made changes from one bank to the other, is it that your clients generally follow you to whatever bank you're with?
Correct.
And do you ever find any pushback? Do they care what bank you're with, or whatever bank you go to? it wouldn't make a difference. They just like the relationship with you, and so they don't really care what bank they're with. Is that how it works?
So you're right about that. And I learned that lesson. I learned that when I was with a bank that went public, rebranded its name. And I said, but they, our clients know us as this name. And when we rebranded the name, and, I was so afraid that clients were going to get, uneasy about, wait, you're changing names of the bank. And that's when I realized that they're not banking with the bank, they're banking with me. So that was an eye-opening experience. And that was, around, 2009, 2010. And that's when I started really seeing things differently in the banking world and how we serviced our clients, that they were banking with me and it really didn't matter to them the name on the bank. So that was an interesting time in my career.
Well, I found in my legal career, which is also a service business, a type of a service business, that it is very important for those relationships, but you have to be able to offer all the services that a client wants. So when we are growing, we put in an estate practice, we do an intellectual property practice. We had to bring the other services the clients want because we didn't want to have a situation where we're farming out work to other law firms or having clients go to other law firms. When when you're a small bank, because 42 North Private Bank is relatively a small bank. I mean, if you look at their deposits and
Yeah.
and their reach, you can't offer the services that a Citibank or a JP Morgan or
I'm
one
going to
of the
stop you
large.
there, Howard.
Okay, you can offer all those services. You can do everything that those banks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only difference is the decisions we make for our clients are completely in-house around a small table. There isn't any red tape. There isn't levels of approvals needed. At a small private bank, you go right to the source. This is the client. This is the relationship. This is the situation. Can we get it done? Yes or no? And more than likely, it's never no. It's always let's figure out how we can get it done. And to your point, before we get to that part, I've lived by three top questions I always ask a new potential client. What do you like about your current bank? What don't you like about your current bank? And what do you wish you had? And if I can fill those three buckets and answer those three questions, then I fulfilled their needs. I know I can service them. I know I can sustain them. And I know I can grow and mine their relationship where I am at.
So when uh, when I send clients to different banks or they're looking for different relationships, some are looking for maybe a line of credit of $50 million, $30 million, whatever it is. And certain banks have the capacity to do that. Others, they may say they do, but what they do is they can take part of it and they can go give it to another bank to try to get it participate. But they're limited in what they can do because of the size of the bank. It seems to me, from my experience, in that a smaller bank can't service the larger accounts in house. They can maybe do joint ventures, I guess, or whatever they call it in the banking industry with other banks, but they can't. Is your bank limited in what they can give out as loans and what they can service? That they, if it gets over a certain point, they have to go outside of their bank to cover that.
So let's not confuse service from lending capabilities. Those are
Right.
two separate things and on two separate sides of the balance sheet. From a lending perspective, it's all based on the bank's capital. So yes, although I can't write a $30 million loan today, that doesn't mean I can't service a $30 million client. So our lending capabilities are much less, but that's because we are a private bank and we're looking for those smaller growing clients. So as they're outgrowing their community bank, those are the type of clients we're looking for. Clients that are no longer getting things done at their current bank in terms of lending. So for example, if a client had a tough time during COVID, their bank, as we stand here today, may be pushing them out. They probably no longer want that loan on their books for whatever reason. that's a great opportunity for us to look at that client, to meet that client, and get to know that client and understand the story behind what happens. So that would be a good client for us. On the service side, I mean, I can service clients up to $100 million in deposits. That's not an issue.
So first, why don't you explain what's the difference between a private bank and a commercial bank?
Of course.
And, what's the difference?
So a private bank is just that. It's privately held, it's non-public. So we paper our deals, and the conversations internally are more brand. We're not checking off a box. You don't meet this criteria. You're not in this credit level. You haven't been in business this long. Those are stuff that we can have conversations about and make policy exceptions to. And we've done that since my time here at 42 North Private. So, board is small, board discussions, senior management is available all the time. When you move on to a commercial bank, it's more, and we are a commercial bank. So we are 42 North Private Bank, but we are a full commercial chartered bank. So we're a nationally chartered bank. We can do business across the country. When you move into a commercial bank or those mid-sized banks, those are typically your publicly traded banks, and they do a great job. Sometimes they get a little confused if they're a community bank or a commercial bank, like they want to do community things, but their policies have become so stringent because they are publicly traded. So the guidelines are different. Regulatory is a little different. They may have to follow different rules. So there may be some pushback on deals at a mid-sized bank or commercial bank, we'll call it for argument's sake, than there is at a smaller community private bank. And then you go into the big box banks and, good luck if you find someone to talk to there, is all I'll say about that.
So when we're talking about uh, loans, and I always have frustration when I have a lot of clients that are looking for loans, and usually the first response I get from bankers is that, we'd love to do this loan. It's a solid client. However, we want them to do their deposits with us. Because banks, it seems to me, from my perspective, are much more interested in deposits than they are in giving loans. Loans have become, in my experience, something that people looking outside the traditional banking industry to a large part, and getting loans from equity firms and insurance companies, and they're giving out more of the loans, and banks are more focused on deposits. And I understand that has to do a lot with ratios, that you have to have a certain amount of deposits, and that kind of triggers as to how much you can do in loans. If you have someone coming to you for a loan, do you require that they change their banking relationship, their deposit relationship with you?
So I'm not a transactional banker. I'm a relationship manager, meaning I am here to manage your full relationship. Granted, not all your business, but I am very upfront when I say I am not transactional. I'm here to build a relationship. I'm here to grow with you. I'm here to help you on your banking journey. I'm here to help you with all your banking needs, not just transact alone. So yes, I do always have a deposit conversation. I consider myself a deposit focused banker more so than I am a lender or, a loan officer. So I always have that conversation first. It's a very comfortable conversation for me to have. A lot of bankers are more lenders. So it's tough for them to have that deposit conversation. But all this changed for banks back in 2007, 2008, 2009 during the recession, when we were putting loans out on the street and not really concerned with the deposit side of the bank. And then the recession hit and loans weren't being paid. We all remember that market. As a bank, we didn't have anything to fall back on for the client. Deposits were all over the place. Same thing with COVID. I think that's when banks really started focusing heavy on the need for deposits. when a lot of banks were doing those PPE loans during COVID, they were doing them as a loss leader to the deposit relationship. So deposits have become very important. And for me, that's music to my ears because I've always been a deposit banker.
And the rates on deposits and on loans and what's
Mm.
paid, uh, is that different with your bank than with other banks, or is it kind of set as to how much banks will pay for deposits or for what they'll charge on loans, what they charge you for wires, and what they it's not just the when you have a banking relationship, a lot of the charges are the what I call the auxiliary charges, the charges for a wire, the charge there's a million little charges that banks have out there. Is that the same for everyone, or is your bank different?
So it's not the same for everyone, although we follow a baseline on interest rates that we pay clients, and that's set by the Fed. We all know, we sit there anticipating Wednesdays every week for the rates to drop, for the lending side and for the deposit side. So we all kind of float around a number. The great thing about being part of a private bank, privately held bank, is we can have discussions around those rates. So our overhead isn't as great as a commercial banks would be. So we can offer that to our clients. We can give them a higher rate than they would probably get at a commercial bank where their overhead is larger than our overhead. Same thing on the lending side. So rates are negotiable. I always tell clients everything is negotiable. In terms of service fees, that's absolutely negotiable. I love when potential clients say to me, "Well, my bank doesn't charge me," and I say to them, "I challenge you on that. You're on an analysis. They're hiding your fees. So when you get a statement, you see zero, but in actuality, you are being charged. You're being charged for every wire, for every ACH, for every positive pay, for every check you're depositing, and you're definitely being charged if you're making cash withdrawals." So I challenge clients who say to me, "My bank doesn't charge me any fees," especially if you're a, bigger bank. So although we do have analysis, we do like to look at the entire relationship, a client's relationship, and say, okay, you know what we can offer you is free services. You do a lot of wires. We can talk about taking that away, taking those fees away for you, and saving you on average probably, $300 to $500 a month.
And why do you think it is? I mean, you know what the bank was looking to do. That your bank was solely in Massachusetts, physically, at least in Massachusetts,
Yeah.
and you joined the bank, and as I understand it, your marching orders or your goal is to bring clients from the metropolitan, meaning New York, New Jersey area, Connecticut, maybe
Correct.
area, to the bank. Uh,
Yes.
why? Why? Why does a Boston bank that's always been in the Boston area want to open up in the New York metropolitan area?
That's a very simple answer. We're the Big Apple. We're the greatest city in the world. We're a financial capital. Everybody wants to be in New York City. New York City's changed a lot. I've spent the last 10 years of my banking career in New York City in corporate banking, for the likes of, like you mentioned earlier, Sterling, Signature, and so on and so forth. So the banking environment has changed, obviously, with what's happened with Signature Bank and First Republic. So there's a lot of business to be had, that's left up for grabs in New York City. But I think the bottom line is, I mean, who doesn't want to be in New York City? We're the greatest city in the world. So definitely, we're very excited. The OCC recently approved us to open up a branch in New York City. So we're going to get that up and running within the next 18 months. We do have an office on 35th Street between 7th and 8th. So we already have a presence there. And that's really where my footprint is, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and the surrounding areas.
The bank, as it's presently constituted, has been servicing the New York area, correct? They've had clients in the New York area, or is this something new that's coming in with you, and their client base was solely in the Boston area?
There was a few, and now we're just building on those bricks. for a really good, solid foundation. We're really careful about the clients we're bringing on board. We want to make sure that, you know, they're right for the client, for the bank, and that we are right for them. So we're really getting to know every client very, very well. And we're also looking for, you know, to put together an advisory board for New York Metro. That's always very important for a growing community bank.
And do you find it hard? I mean, you know, you know that I'm not particularly a bank lawyer, although I deal with a lot of bank lawyers, and my partners are bank lawyers and represent at least 15, 20 banks. And I'm always amazed because I'm almost every day I find a bank I never heard of before in the market. I never knew there were so many banks. I knew about 10 banks before we did this merger and had this banking firm. Every day it's a new bank. Now, nobody in New York ever heard of 42 North Private. I shouldn't say nobody. Just about nobody ever heard of 42 North Private Bank. Do you find that to be a significant hurdle for you in getting businesses? You call somebody up and say, "Hey, I'm with 42 North Private Bank," and they say, "Who? What's 42 North Private Bank?" Is that a hurdle that you have to face?
Definitely, I do not consider it a hurdle. And like we touched on a little while ago, they bank with me, right? Not the bank. I just happen to be part of a solid organization that's going to help me service and care for that client. So it's a beautiful marriage. And I actually like the challenge. So when someone says to me, "Well, I've never heard of your bank," I'm like, "Great. Give me 15 minutes. Let me tell you all about it." So, I mean, who wants to, "Oh yeah, I heard of your bank." Like, no, the conversation basically dies at that point.
So before you said that, I think maybe I'm paraphrasing this incorrectly. You said that really the bank doesn't matter. It's the relationship with the banker in this
Correct.
case. So then it doesn't matter what you could go tomorrow to another bank, any bank, and as long as the client feels good about you, it doesn't matter what bank that they're going with. So it has nothing to do with 42 North Bank. It has to just do with you in terms of what the client is getting that's any different than what they can get from any other bank. Would that be fair to say?
To an extent. So the asterisk in that is, you're my client. I moved you over to 42 North Private, and now in a couple of months, I'm going somewhere else. In a year, I'm going somewhere else. That's going to probably make you uneasy. And it's not like you could just pick up and move your accounts. You've opened up accounts at banks. It's not an overnight thing. It's a process. We understand it's a process. We have a great team back at our headquarters that does everything from soup to nuts for our clients to onboard them. So it's not a process I want to put my clients through. So when I made the decision to join 42 North Private, I knew it was the right decision because it's a small, growing private bank that I want to be a part of. And I want my clients to grow with. And I truly believe this is going to be a great banking story to tell.
Let's talk a little about rainmaking, bringing in business. How do you go about bringing in business? I know you have a long history with clients from your 25 years of banking in the New York area, but I assume that you're reaching out besides the people that you knew previously to try to get new business for the bank. How do you go about doing that? How do you go about rainmaking for the bank to bring in new customers?
Oh, great question. I am truly blessed to have an amazing circle of COIs, centers of influence. These are relationships I've had for 20 years of just, you know, individuals, business owners, professionals, entrepreneurs that continue to feed me business. And they're not necessarily clients of mine, just people I've built really strong relationships with that have probably been more beneficial to me as a COI than they have as an individual client. And we're always helping each other. So I know you can probably agree with this. Network, network, network. So your network, your net worth is your network. And I truly, believe in that. I think that that's important, and it really defines who you are as a professional. So I think, to answer your question, it's not just the great clients that I have, but it's the COIs that I've maintained relationships with throughout the years of my career.
So when you network, say I know you're a golfer, you go to a lot of different events, you're involved in some charities, and you meet
Yes,
somebody
yes.
and you have a nice conversation with them. You tell them what you do, but it doesn't really go any further than that. Do you then get their information? Do you follow up with them? Hey, great talking to you. Why don't we get together for lunch, or why don't we have a further conversation? See how we can help each other. How do you do that? You've now met somebody. You haven't
Mhm.
really, you know, they haven't indicated to you that they particularly are looking to change their banking relationship. But what do you do?
I am so happy you asked me this question. So about 15 to 18 years ago, I read a book called The Go Giver by Bob Berg, and it changed my perspective on business development. So instead of being a go-getter, be a go-giver. So in that instance, a bank, I meet someone, they may not need me, but I tap into what their needs are. So I'm going to be a go-getter. I'm going to go get you maybe something that you're having a challenge with. Maybe you need to talk to an attorney. Maybe you've outgrown your CPA. What's going on in your business? And I always find that once we resolve a challenge or an issue for someone, they never forget that. People never forget how you made them feel. They'll always forget what you've done for them, but they probably more than likely will not forget how you made them feel. So that would probably sit in the back of their minds, like, Gigi helped me resolve an attorney issue that I had. And I just sit there patiently, and I know their bank, for a lack of better terms, is going to tick them off one day. And, I'm banking on the fact that they're going to remember me and give me a call and say, you know what, I'm so frustrated with my bank. I know we met 6 months ago, 3 months ago, whatever it was. Can we start having a conversation? So that's really what I do in that instance.
I think I do something similar in that I built my business based on uh, uh, giving business to other people. I take it as chits. When I meet a new client, when I sit down with a new client, I ask them questions which may have nothing to do with what I'm talking to them about. I ask them who's their accountant, who's their banker, who's this, and they may think that I'm just trying to be thorough. But what I'm trying to do is, if I get a response from them that say, this is my accountant, but he's not the greatest, or I'm not so happy, well, then I'm going to take someone in my network and try to make a referral.
Right.
So I built my business on referrals to other professionals, including other
Mhm.
lawyers. I'll do, what I do. And then I know that I'm going to be at top of their list when an opportunity comes along, because they've gotten business from me. Do you use that kind of philosophy in what you do? Do you give out a lot of
Absolutely.
referrals to
And I
other
and I
people?
take it one step further. I love to learn about people. So sometimes I'll meet someone and they'll bring up an issue that they're having with their child. Maybe their child can't find an internship, or can't get, was looking for something specific or looking for a job, and I'll help them in that instant. So that's personal. That's not even professional.
Right.
And as we all know, I mean, you're a parent, I'm a parent. You help my child, I'm never going to forget that. That's going to sit with me forever. So I've done that. I've recently done that. I helped a friend, business owner in town. His son needed an internship, and I didn't stop. So this was maybe 2 months ago, and I continued every time I met someone who was in his son's world. I'm like, I know someone whose son is looking for, and it finally hit. It finally hit. And I know he would never forget that. We have a great relationship anyway. But yeah, even take it one step further and personally see how I can help.
One of my biggest clients, I'd met the editor of a real estate paper, and she mentioned to me at lunch, we were having lunch, that she was looking to Christmas to get her son the latest version of Nintendo. This was a few years ago. And I happen to represent some of the largest retail electronic stores. And you couldn't get it then, but I had it on her desk the next day. And
See?
she called me up and said, I'm sending a reporter over to talk to you. And the next week, uh, it was the Real Estate Weekly, which was the largest real estate paper at the time. My picture was on the front page with a big that I'm the go-to guy for commercial real estate in New York. And it all had to do with I was able to get her that
And
Nintendo.
it had nothing to do with commercial real estate.
Had
It's
nothing to do with
it's just
commercial. It had
doing
to
that.
getting her that Nintendo because if you could do something for someone's family, it's more important than anything else. I remember when I was a young lawyer, I um, I was very insulted that the senior partner wanted me to handle for a major client. I was doing multi-million-dollar collection work for him. His wife was unhappy with the vertical blinds, and she wanted someone to go to small claims court to that she had a dispute. I says, "What am I? I'm going to go to Westchester Small Claims Court. I'm a big shot lawyer." He says, "This is the most important case you have because this is what's important for the client, not what you're doing." And it was true because he wouldn't call me about the big cases, but this because his wife was on his neck, we'll say.
Yeah, yep. Get
You
so
know,
you got it that
and-
you resolved the challenge for him. You resolved a huge
right,
issue for him.
right,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's
right,
like I call it clearing the air for a person. Like let me help clear your air so you can see me more directly and how I can help you now and we can do business together. So I
right,
do like that whole go giver mentality.
right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about uh, how work-life balance for you. I understand that you're divorced, you have kids.
I do.
How do you prioritize? You seem like to have the type of a job where you're working crazy hours. You can work at any time and be doing anything. How do you prioritize your family, your personal life, your professional life? How do you go about doing that? Do you have a philosophy or a way that you do that?
I think that there comes a point in our careers where there is overlapping of both. So I figured out a way to sort of like, marry both. I do, turn off on the weekends. I do give that time to myself and my children. Fortunately, now I do have adult children. So, I have three amazing daughters, 23, 21, and 17. So out of college, almost finishing and entering college. So the weight of that the care for children basically is a little off my shoulders. It's more now phone calls and texting and begging, pleading, and being a walking ATM for the most part. So that's manageable. Um, but about 5 years ago, my ex-husband's daughter dropped off her 18-month-old daughter to me. So not really what I wanted to be doing as my children were getting older, but she's changed my life completely. So raising her from 18 months to now 6 years old, and she's graduated kindergarten, really made me hone in on work-life balance. I had to turn off. I had to be available to her. I had to be there for her. I was like literally raising a new baby. And she needed my time and my care and my nurturing. And she needed to also have a social life and get into extracurricular activities and things I thought I was completely done with. So that really was a turning point for me in understanding how important personal life is and work life balance. And you have to really enjoy what you do, who you do it for, and who you do it with in order to have a really healthy work life balance. So that was really the changing point for me. I do turn off whenever I'm home. If my kids are around, they want to sit down and talk to me. I'll turn my phone off, and at most, more than likely, they're grabbing my phone out of my hands because our clients are 24/7. But I've also found that during COVID, clients have become very, very aware as well of how important work-life balance is,
Well,
and employers.
I think that one thing that happened in COVID, and there's good and bad things that have come in what I call a post-COVID world, is that people aren't necessarily have to work out of an office as much.
Hmm.
People are working more remotely. That may
Yes.
be the good part. The bad part is I get calls from clients 11 o'clock at night, and they start off the conversation with, "Is this too late?" But you've already called me, so who's going to say no to that? you called me, so I guess it's not. I picked up the phone. If I pick up the phone, it's not too late. If I didn't pick up the phone, then I guess it's too late. But that has changed our world in how people can work. You don't really, I think, work out of an office so much. You're kind of on the road, or you're going to see people, or if you have your cell phone, to a large extent, you don't really need much else in terms of an office. We used to have banks that had ATMs in every corner, and you'd have big branches with tellers and all that kind of stuff, and that seems to have not changed. That seems to have changed a lot. What do you see as the biggest change in the banking industry in the last few years? Where do you think that that's going? Where banking is going to be in a few years from where it was?
The biggest change I've seen is technology.
Right.
So less brick and mortar, more focus on technology, IT, products and services that allow clients to access their banking needs anywhere in the world. And COVID really taught us a lot about that and the need for not having to go into an office to get things done. So I think in that time, I've seen banks invest more and more in technology. In recent months, we've seen TD Bank shut down 38 branches. So there goes that brick and mortar. Chase has become virtually virtual. And other banks, you see a lot more apps. You see a lot more fintechs. Banks like SoFi and Ally Bank, where it's all on an app. Clients are no longer walking into a branch, no longer writing a check. You can do all your check writing online. I know personally, I haven't had a personal check in years. My daughter's school asked me for a check. I'm like, where am I supposed to get one? I had to dig in my drawer for a starter check from when I opened the account like 5 years ago when I moved into my new house. So technology is definitely the biggest, and I think it's going to continue that way. What we want to marry is the technology and the humans. So we don't want to just become, an AI bank, an online bank. We want to continue having the technology that helps service our clients to the best of our abilities, but also have that personal touch for our clients that they can pick up the phone and call me directly. I have an office line, but my cell phone is on my email, on my business cards. That's where clients reach me, and I think that's important. So yes, I can offer you the technology and everything you need to, and maybe you're that type of client that doesn't require speaking to anyone. But we also want to be able to service those clients that require a person that they need to talk to. And that's what we do differently.
And is your bank looking to expand outside of the New York area and the Boston area? Is
I
that
mean,
something?
I would like to see us possibly going into Florida. So, really monopolize the East Coast. But again, not a brick and mortar, but more corporate style banking, meaning an office space.
Are you looking more, focusing more on high net worth individuals or small businesses or larger businesses? What do you see as your target client base?
I don't say no to any potential client. Everything is worth a conversation, and I always believe that there's always something there.
But
So
there's
all the
got to
above.
be Okay, but there's got to be something. If someone comes to you, of course, you're not going to say no. But in terms of your targeting and reaching out, are you reaching out to businesses which may have different needs or high net worth individuals? Or does it not matter at all to your bank? You have no kind of focus on any kind of strategy as to how to grow.
Yeah, we really don't have a specific profile client. I think for me, I want to help the clients that, you know, outgrew their bank or not getting the service that they used to get. So those are the clients I want to work on. A lot, we've been hearing a lot lately that banks have been pushing clients out because they're no longer in that industry. They no longer want that type of business within their organization. Those are great opportunities for me.
Okay, well, I think we've kind of come to the end. I think you've given us a lot of information about your bank and what people should be looking for in a bank. And I want to thank you for being on the mark today. And good luck in the growth of 42 North Private Bank and your participation in it. Thank you for being on the mark.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of On the Mark. I started this podcast by quoting John F. Kennedy and would like to end it with quoting one of my favorite baseball players, Nolan Ryan. Enjoying success requires the ability to adapt. Only by being open to change will you have a true opportunity to get the most from your talent. I wish you success in staying ahead of the curve instead of behind the 8 ball. Thank you for tuning in.